You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we'll be taking a sideways look at flashy vehicles in Fab Facts.
I'll be back in the randomizer.
and it's time for Leftovers, part 2 of our Archive Anderson recording from 1981.
Oh, I love Leftovers. That's all coming up in Pod 135.
Of the Yummy Anderson Podcast.
Tasty.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Hello!
Hello!
Are you by any chance Richard Neinstein James?
Well, I am. And are you by any chance Jamie Lionel Anderson?
You are correct there. And I think over there, lying down, next to the chaise longue, which is a bit weird, I don't know why he's not on it, is Chris Randomiser Dale.
Hang on. Yes, he seems to be tapping at the floor, and he's got some sort of stethoscope or something. I think he might be... Is he listening out for Death Watch Beetle or something? I don't know what he's going... What are you doing?
Who knows what he's doing?
Yes.
But what we do know is that we're all doing the Gerry Anderson podcast, and that is this that you're listening to right now.
Yeah, that's true. This must be about 135 or so.
That sounds like a really reliable estimate, Rich James.
Yeah,
so,
it does, doesn't it?
Assuming that the person who's listening to this, yes, that's you, might never have heard the previous 134 Gerry Anderson podcasts, what are they in for in this treat of an audio experience?
Well, they're in for the ride of a lifetime.
Core.
In other words, Chris Dale's Amazing Randomizer. A little later on, we've got emails from our listeners who have been emailing it in at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. We've got some messages from their Facebook group where they've been posting at facebook.com/groups/Podsterons. I'll be popping over to YouTube and Twitter to see what people have been saying about the Gerry Anderson podcast and all things Gerry Anderson. We've got Fab Facts coming up in just a moment, and as ever, some Gerry Anderson newsy news.
Oh, yeah. We've always got that, haven't we?
There's always plenty going on. And, as we said in our little introduction there, some Christmas leftovers.
Yes,
Yum.
absolutely. So before Christmas and before our 2 episodes reviewing the whole of 2020, we had the first half of an archive recording from 1981 from a mini Anderfan convention.
Yes.
Courtesy of Mark Jones, friend of the podcast. And we are going to have the rest of that this episode. So
Nice.
That's quite exciting, I think.
That's great. Yeah, brilliant.
Now, Richard James, it's
Yes.
been a little while.
It has.
We did some recording before the break, and now we're back, and it feels like getting into a really comfy pair of slippers.
It does, doesn't it?
And slightly cheesy like them too. So part of that comfort will be the fact that every week we have a section called Fab Facts.
Every week, without fail.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Fab Facts,
Yeah.
Richard James's favourite segment,
Yeah.
takes place each week when I have a book
About
of Fab
now.
Facts. About now,
Yeah.
yes. I have a book of Fab Facts. You can hear it here. And I flick through the book like that. And at a random point, Richard James shouts Fab, which stops me flicking. And on that page, hopefully, will be a Fab Fact, which I'll read to you. And you'll exclaim, cool, that's a Fab Fact.
Right,
or
okay,
maybe
well,
you
I'll
won't.
see. Yeah, exactly.
You'll be the judge of that and the jury.
Exactly.
Okay, well, here we go for some flicking now.
Fab!
What a lovely place to stop.
What, the end? Is that it? Do we move on now? Should we do the news?
And that
Oh.
brings us to the end of this week's No, we are in the mid-60s here, on the cusp
Right.
of Thunderbirds,
Oh,
which is a very exciting time in the world of Anderson, I'd
Yeah.
say. But I'm going to give you one word to kick us off. Fire flash.
right.
So, right now, most Anderson fans are imagining in their mind's eye the very exciting, iconic first episode of Thunderbirds and the classic rescue of the Fireflash airliner by Thunderbird 2's elevator cars, aren't you?
Yeah, of course.
Let's think of another iconic Thunderbirds vehicle. Not one of the main ones, but a guest vehicle.
Right.
Sidewinder.
Oh,
Ooh, now, not as popular, second episode of Thunderbirds, pit of peril, but I bet you can imagine it clearing the trees out the way, toppling into the pit, the fire, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, great.
But did you know that those two iconic Thunderbirds vehicles were not the first place that Anderson fans actually saw those two vehicles?
Get away.
So you'd think immediately Thunderbirds, but no. They were first seen in a Stingray story. Not on television, I hasten to add, but within the pages of the TV Century 21 comic.
Gotcha.
So the comic's second Stingray comic strip, which ran from issue 8 to issue 14, opened with a Fireflash airliner being shot down over a South American jungle by an underwater alien race called the Crustavans.
Oh, right.
It could have been Crustavons, but I'm assuming it's a play on crustaceans. So
yeah, that's good.
Let's say Crustavans. Stingray is called in to investigate in the story and is carried to the danger zone by a Sidewinder, or the Jungle Cat, as it's called in the story.
Okay.
Now, the first 3 Stingray comic stories all included stills from the television series as part of the action. Every half a dozen panels or so, there would be a screenshot to make it feel like you were watching an episode of the show, except in colour rather than black and white. And so, in addition to being realised by Ron Embleton, the famous TV21 artist, lovely work from Ron, the Fireflash and the Sidewinder were both represented by screenshots from the as yet unaired Thunderbirds.
I see. That's weird.
Yeah, isn't it? The Crustavans story, I really want to call them the Crustavons, actually, on second approach, but who knows?
Yeah, I like Crustavons.
But the story about those crusty people ran from March to April 1965, which means it started a full 6 months before Thunderbirds appeared on television.
Oh.
And it was one of the first hints in the comic of Stingray's imminent successor, although readers at the time wouldn't have realised that.
No.
But nor would they have taken particular note of the photograph that appeared on the cover of issue 5 of the comic, which was Stingray cruising past a beautiful and soon to be very, very famous island in the Pacific.
Get away.
Tracy Island. Yeah, there's a great, quite well-known picture of Stingray in the foreground, Tracy Island in the background, looking quite serene, actually. But nobody would have known then that they were seeing the base of the upcoming International Rescue Team.
Absolutely.
There you go. Isn't that lovely?
That's great.
Because now, if that sort of thing happened now, people will be all over it. They'd be, coming up with theories about why stuff appears and how they link together.
YouTube videos about it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or just on those 2 stills, there would probably be at least 100 20-minute plus YouTube videos examining them and the models and the styling and why they probably came from a different series because of this and that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, actually.
Wow.
And, just really lovely that those models, those vehicles were incorporated by the guys at TV Century 21, because it was all really under the same roof. So,
yes,
absolutely, Alan Fennell, the editor, and the rest of the team, I suppose, would have seen these models and thought, cool, they're rather lovely, let's put them into Stingray.
Yes. Nice. And also sort of gives greater weight exactly to the whole kind of the expanded Gerry Anderson universe.
Absolutely, yes.
Feel.
Although that obviously wasn't the intention from the TV side, but it became more and more the intention on the comic side. Yeah. So, did you know that already, Podsterons? Had you seen the crusty aliens shooting down Fireflash in the comic originally, and maybe you did know, maybe you had a sixth sense that these were from a new series that you hadn't even seen yet? Anyway, that's the sort of fab fact that we cover in Fab Facts. I think you'll agree that these facts are pretty fab.
Okay,
Richard. Well, even though you disagree, that brings us to the end of this week's Crusty Fact.
I mean,
that doesn't sound
great, does it? I know, crusty fact, it reminds me of my Christmas lunch. Anyway, yes, you're listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Now, look, before we go any further, whatever you do, you must subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to us on, and that way you'll be sure of catching every single episode as it appears. Also, you can leave us a nice rating. That's a review and a rating to let us know what you think of the show, and maybe even copy the link and paste it to all your social media profiles, and perhaps even email a few friends to let them know where we are, what we do, and how long we're here for, and they might enjoy it too. Also, you can get in touch. podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk is the email. And over Christmas and the New Year break, we had lots of messages from lots of Podsterons. For example, Chris Yost got in touch to say, I've been wondering this for a long time. Why was the opening narration for Captain Scarlet changed to a warning that he is indestructible and you are not, don't try to imitate him? Were their kids actually playing Captain Scarlet and taking the play so far as to be believing that they were indestructible too? Well, I don't know. Were you aware that that was added later, Jamie?
It was certainly one of the variations.
I see.
I don't know if it was actually used a lot. I think it might have been used in some regions. I'm honestly not sure. You know who will know? Chris Randomiser Dale. But unfortunately, he's very busy down there by the chaise long. Don't know what he's up to.
Doing? Yeah, well, he's rolled up the carpet now. He's rolling up the carpet and
don't make a mess,
up
Chris.
That floorboard. That's very strange.
When he's put it all back, I'll ask him, and hopefully we can get an answer there.
All right. Chris Hicks wrote in to say, Hi, Richard. I tweeted you earlier today, and indeed he did. He says, regarding a trivia tidbit I thought you might be interested in. As the subject of the email might suggest, and it said at the top of the email, it concerns the launching sequence of Thunderbird 1. I'd like to draw your attention to the screen grabs I've attached. In the first one, you can see Thunderbird 1 begin its descent down into the launch bay backwards, like it did every time, as illustrated by the arrow, which he very handily drew in for me. However, in every single episode, halfway down the descent, Thunderbird 1 has magically turned to the left, carrying on its descent and finding its way into launch position sideways. Demonstrated, he says, by my second image. How has nobody ever picked up on this? Is it facing it is facing a completely different way by the time it reaches the launch pad. Worth making a video? Says Chris. Thanks for reading.
Chris, absolutely congratulate you on your eagle-eyedness, but I'm afraid you are not the first and you will not be the last to point out this little bit of continuity.
There we are.
Now, I think there are various theories that there is, in fact, a 90-degree turntable on the launch platform, and it turns as it descends. It's just one of those things, isn't it, really? I mean...
Yeah, I suppose it is.
There are all sorts... Once you start to really pluck at... shows like Thunderbirds, things that like around the scale of Thunderbird 2, for example, which constantly changes between shots, and things like Thunderbird 1 rotating as it descends down the ramp. We just have to sort of let it slide, really. I think the show's so good that we can forgive little things like that, can't we?
Exactly. And finally for now, but we will be coming back to some more emails later, here's just a couple of thoughts about the anniversary of Gerry's passing on Boxing Day, for example. Ian Thompson says, Hi, Jamie. As someone who lost his father in my mid-teens many, many years ago, my thoughts go out to you and your family today. So he wrote this on Boxing Day. Regarding your father's legacy and what he gave us, I grew up during the original Super Marionation era, so I'm always drawn to that, with the possible exception of the kid with glasses. Got to agree with Jamie there, he says. But something that I've learned mostly throughout your podcasts is that your dad, when making all the shows that he and the fantastic teams behind him, he didn't talk down to kids in the audience. And watching back the old shows, I can see that now. Now that I have grandkids of my own and having watched some of today's TV with them, it would seem to be something that's rarely repeated today. Perhaps some of the kids' TV show planners should be taught the Gerry way, and then their shows may stand up over 50 years and people will be talking about them then. And on a similar vein, Rob Pollard messaged us on Boxing Day to say, I'm about to raise a glass, or in this case 5, in memory of your father, the great man himself. His programmes gave me an immense pleasure as a 4-year-old in 1966 and still do as an almost 59-year-old in 2020. He'd be so proud of what you've achieved, I just know it. May his legacy continue. Wishing you a happy new year. And let's hope, he says, that it can start and get better, as 2020 has been a very strange time. And that's from Rob Pollard. So there we are.
Lovely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit late in the day. I know it's a couple of weeks ago now, but we did have lots and lots of messages. And of course, on Twitter, the hashtag Cheers Gerry Anderson went down a storm on Boxing Day. So I just thought I'd read out those couple of messages.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. And thanks to everybody who messaged on the day. Hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands.
Yep.
We were trending in the UK from sort of 8 in the morning with Cheers Gerry Anderson, which is really rather lovely. All these years on.
Yes. So early in the morning. It does rather, point to the fact that a few people started a bit early, didn't they? With their cheers.
I don't think they were all drinking. No? I think we're using cheers as thank you. See. But yes, thanks for that, Richard James. Lovely stuff. Thank you all. I'm sure there will be more messages later. Is that right, Richard?
Yep. Oh, yes, of course.
Okay, well, while we wait for more of those messages, shall we have some Gerry Anderson news?
Oh, yes.
Off we go. Richard, I know
Yeah.
you are a fan of this section, and it's been a while since you've said your famous newsworthy moniker.
It's true.
Is moniker the right thing? Probably not. No.
Yeah, she's a lovely girl. Old newsworthy Monica. Lovely.
Just say it.
Newsy news.
Thank you very much. Right. So as well as loving some newsy news, you are also a fan of Space 1999, Richard. Isn't that
true.
right? Yes.
Yes.
Although you'll never forgive your sister for vomiting on your eagle.
I'm so glad you remember that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's the story of Richard James travelling somewhere and his sister getting car sick and throwing up in a bucket, which also happened to contain his dinky eagle.
Yes.
Poor Richard. Well, Richard,
true.
Now you're a grown-up.
Barely.
You can sort of feel like you're transporting yourself to Moonbase Alpha for real.
Right.
Because now available for pre-order and coming probably in the next month or so, a replica top, sort of uniform top.
What?
For Commander John Koenig and Eagle pilot Alan Carter. So, you know, the one-coloured sleeve and the
fantastic.
The collar detail and the stripe for Koenig and the single-coloured sort of orangey, ochre sleeve for Alan Carter. So they will be a limited edition that will be available for pre-order now or very shortly, if it isn't already, and they'll be hopefully arriving sort of, I guess, mid-late February, maybe very early March. But do go along and pre-order one of those, and I'm pretty sure there'll be a deal on getting both if you want to spend half your time commanding and the rest of it crashing eagles.
Oh. And will the Bergman cosplay come with a free skull cap and a pair of sideburns?
I think it would be criminal if we didn't do that. But let's wait and see. Now this marks the start of a load of cool new stuff, which is coming throughout the year thanks to our new deal with ITV.
Lovely.
Richard, as you know, as we were discussing before this, there are some really rather cool bits and pieces coming and will be every month for the foreseeable future. So
nice.
Stand by for action. Now, I will also mention, I believe this is also an exclusive to the podcast, for the 28th of January, which is the 60th anniversary of Supercar, there will be a very special, very, very, very limited edition Supercar 60th anniversary collector's box set becoming available, which will contain a specially recovered DVD set, a Supercar pilot's license replica, Supercar badge, as you would have got from the Supercar Club in the 1960s, and also 4 brand new art cards, which we newly commissioned from a couple of artists. More details on that soon. Really lovely stuff. So keep an eye out for that pre-order as well, because I think we're limiting it to just 300 boxes worldwide.
Crikey!
Well, Supercar's a bit of a special niche piece, and we want to celebrate it, but hopefully that will be exciting for the Supercar fans out there. The Tracy Brothers and Parker from Big Chief Studios are finally in stock, having made their way through all the port troubles and all that sort of stuff. It's taken a very, very long time, but if you pre-ordered one, it should be with you pretty much now, or it will be in the post. If you want to grab one, we've got extremely limited stock of the Tracy Brothers, something around 10 each of those left, maybe less. A few more Parkers, but Parker obviously is extremely popular, so I expect he'll disappear fairly quickly too, so go and grab those. While you're there, there's a January sale going on, 20% off a load of stuff at the Gerry Anderson store, where we make space for all the cool upcoming goodies that we're going to be developing and releasing over the coming year. If you'd like some free visual entertainment, then I suggest you check out the latest series of Century 21 Tech Talk.
Yes.
Narrated by John Culshaw as Ed Bishop in his later years, talking about all sorts of vehicles from the world of Gerry Anderson, particularly focusing on UFO and Terrorhawks, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And finally, for this news segment, unless you are going to add anything else on at the end, Richard James?
No, I'm not.
Good. Anderson Insiders is getting a relaunch in due course. If you're already a member, you will be getting an email in the next few weeks inviting you to a free month to the new Insiders, which will be integrated into the Gerry Anderson store. Make it a much more sort of fluid and contiguous experience. Is that the right word? It's certainly a word.
Yeah.
So you'll be getting some more stuff there, and that will then give you access to all sorts of extra bits and pieces and automatic discounts on the store and all sorts of other stuff like that. And I will be inviting a few people, such as David Tremont, to join the Insiders. So people whose work you may love and who you may have heard on the podcast will also be interacting in that community too, which is quite exciting.
Oh, that's good. Yes, nice.
I might even send you an invite, Richard, possibly.
Well, I might not join in.
Oh, all right. Well, let's see.
I might not want your invite.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
But until I send out that invite, and until next time, that is the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. That was the news.
Oh, how I've missed your dulcet tones.
I'm sure you have. Now, Ash got in touch with us at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Would you like to hear what he said?
Oh, go on then.
I thought you might. Since Richard asked for emails from people who don't like Thunderbirds, says Ash, I thought it was my duty to send this email in. And I did ask, so that's fair enough. I preface this by reminding all that this is entirely my own opinion. Yep, fair enough. He says, in my younger years, when introduced to Thunderbirds, I loved every moment of their exciting rescues. However, when I recently went and revisited Thunderbirds, I found that the show was not as good as I remembered. I noticed that the stories were mainly built upon the vehicles rather than character development and story intricacies. But despite my mild dislike for Thunderbirds, I still greatly appreciate Gerry's other shows, ranking UFO, Stingray, Captain Scarlet, and the Secret Service as my top 4. Thanks, from Ash.
Interesting. Well, the Secret Service made it in there.
That's right. Yes, how interesting. Yes, well, fair enough, Ash. I did indeed ask a few weeks ago, is there anyone out there who doesn't like Thunderbirds? And there we have it. That's interesting, isn't it? I mean, perhaps that sort of reflects on the change in storytelling on TV these days, that he really missed character development and more intricate stories when he rewatched it as an adult, because that's what we've become so used to these days, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Things have moved on a lot and evolved, and that's natural and fine. And if you still love the more old-fashioned stuff, the more nostalgic stuff, then quite right too. And if you don't, then that's quite right also.
Of course it is. Exactly. Mark Wilson got in touch to say hello and Happy New Year to the three of you. I just thought for your YouTube version of the podcast, I listened to another popular and joint favourite podcast of mine, the James Bond Radio. Give it a listen, it's brilliant, and the hosts are knowledgeable, funny, and very interactive with the listeners. Oh, right.
Sounds like competition.
Yeah, and whilst they do a traditional Apple podcast version of their show, I've recently been watching their weekly podcasts on YouTube. They record a live visual version of their show over Skype and Zoom, whatever it is, and upload it to YouTube. And I much prefer this version, as I get to see the hosts, and it's much more enjoyable to listen and watch. He says, would you ever consider doing this with the Gerry Anderson podcast? As I think it would be great for us to see you guys during the podcast like you do with the old Fab Lives and so on. Just a thought. Looking forward to see what 2021 has in store for the show. And that's from Mark Wilson. I mean, that's a thought, but it'd be quite difficult, wouldn't it? Because I suppose we have so many segments and edits and bits to cut in, and
there's
you
more
go wrong
edits
all
than
the
you
time.
think. And what would we do for the interview, and what would we do for the randomizer? We'd have to get Chris to record his randomizer. Yeah, it might be a bit complicated. I mean, one day, when we're allowed to see each other in the same airspace again, we did talk about recording in the same location. We used to do it occasionally when you'd come over for a Fab Live.
Exactly. I'm sure that'll happen again. Exactly.
Yeah, maybe once in a while is the answer, I guess, there.
That's right. And the final email, Martin Laybourne. Hi, Richard and Jamie. I've just seen a tribute to designer Pierre Cardin on the BBC News today. Yes, he died, I think, over Christmas and New Year. He says this included his future fashion concepts, which certainly appeared to be the influence for Captain Scarlet and UFO costume designs. And he sent us a link. What are your thoughts, he says? Well, yes, we covered this early, didn't we? A few podcasts ago, I think. I think it was Eric who pointed out the Pierre Cardin and Captain Scarlet uniform sort of inspirations. So, yes, quite well known that. Thanks for that, Martin. Do get in touch with us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. We always look forward to your emails, and I enjoy reading them out, and I'm sure I'll do that next week too.
I enjoy you enjoying reading them out.
Oh, good, because I enjoy you enjoying me enjoying reading them out.
Gosh, and so it could continue, but thankfully it won't. Because we've got to play out some more of our archive feature that we started a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, yes, all right.
Now, if you remember, this is from 1981, so it's pretty old. In fact, is it 40? 40 years old!
I can't believe that.
That seems so weird. I know, obviously, maths and numbers means that is the case, but
yes,
for some reason, 1981 doesn't feel like it should be 40 years ago, but it is. Mm-hmm. So there we go. This 40-year-old archive recording, which does suffer from some archive distortions and stuff, but I'm sure you'll forgive it because it also includes a range of fantastic interviewees, including Dad and I think Paddy Seale and John and Wanda Brown and Martin Bauer, and a couple of others too. I'm sorry, I've just had a brain fart and forgotten who's on the recording.
Fair enough.
But you're about to hear more. So here you go, the archive recording from the Anderfan Minicon in 1981. Here we go.
In the sound effects, there's obviously some sounds which reappear throughout the series, time and time again. Commander Shaw's hollow chair noise, I think, is one that reappears at regular times. Did you have a large bank of sound effects, and who made the decision what would sound like what?
Well, yes, we had a library of effects that were repeated so that we used the same effects, the same sound for the same thing each time. A variety of electric motors, basically, and electric relay switches. And it was really a point of putting them against the picture to see whether they looked correct or not. Some noises just sounded too heavy. These sort of noises, one in particular that you're talking about, is almost like a vacuum cleaner sound. And even by varying the pitch of the track, it'll either bring it up or down. And we maybe found the right sound, but it just sounded a little bit too heavy. By pitching it up, it then got it into the correct sound. I think basically Gerry was the only one who made any decisions once we got into the theatre whether a sound was correct or not. We at that time possibly had got too close to it and had accepted it and thought that it worked, and it sometimes needed an independent person to come along and say, well, I don't really think that works. I think that's fair enough.
Yes, again, I'd like to add a few points here. What I find interesting today, watching the films in chronological order, is how we have in fact moved ahead technically, in real life over this very short space of time. And when we produced Supercar, it was, I suppose, in the very early days of the jet engine. Today, there's so many aircraft and machines that are driven with jet engines that probably, one could obtain a recording or recordings with infinite number of variations. But in those days, we had to create what was then a very weird and science fiction sound. We've been listening to Supercar, and it really doesn't sound very odd today, but at the time it was something quite new and quite novel.
On the subject of drawing parallels with what's happening in present technology, there's a lot of things in the early 60s film which are being used now, for instance the fireworks at fire and ski jump and swimming on one. How much of that was drawn from ideas of the military that were around at the time? When you were totally independent and then the military had to come up with them.
Well, can we just take this into... I'd like Martin Bauer to contribute to this one. First of all, dealing with the point about Fireball XL5. As the film was running, I was saying to my wife Mary that at that time there was a great deal of speculation as to how man would go into space. And of course, there was the obvious vertical takeoff of a rocket. But I heard, and it probably was completely untrue, but I remember at the time I heard that the Russians were developing a rocket sledge so that the rocket would build up tremendous power on a track, and using a fuel which would be carried in a bogie underneath, and then it would be launched having gained a certain amount of speed and dropping the bogie behind. And so we use that principle. Well, obviously we know today that that was not the way it was to be done. Generally speaking, the designs were based on the state of the art at the time and our own guesswork as to how it would develop. But I'd like to hand this over to Martin, because Martin created, I suppose, hundreds of models for Space 1999, and he was constantly faced with producing models that would look realistic.
Yes, I found one of the main problems actually was to produce a design which somebody didn't say looked like something else. Very often I would think I'd got an original idea, although as Gerry says it was quite often drawn from something in reality and then carried one stage further. But I remember many times turning up at the studios with a model for the first time when nobody's seen it, and somebody would say to me, "Oh, that looks just like so and so," and I thought, "Oh, no." And I've tried to be original, and that in fact is one of the hardest things to do, is to be original. But I used to draw inspiration from the oddest things. Spaceships in Space 1999 sometimes were governed. There's one particular one where, by the shape of it, it's simply the fact that I walked into a shop one day and there was a Hoover vacuum cleaner sitting there, and beside it was a range of spares which Hoover produced, and there was this amazing shaped container. And I thought that will make a spaceship, and in fact that turned out as part of a spaceship in Space 1999. It was not completely just the vacuum cleaner, but it was worked on. But it had such a beautiful shape that shape was actually developed, and that was one of the most way out designs that came. It was simply the shape of a vacuum cleaner suggested it to me, and I took it one stage further. But also, having said that, I try to make them fairly functional, so that if somebody was to ask me, well, what does that part do, I'm able to answer them and say, well, that's the vertical takeoff jet or whatever. But it is very difficult now to come up with something which is totally original, which somebody doesn't say, oh, that looks like so-and-so.
See, it's an interesting question, because when I was watching Supercar, okay, that was long before the Harrier job jet. And so one says, in one way, we were looking into the future, but then I noticed that we didn't have any downward thrusters on Supercar. So how it got off the ground, I don't know.
What inspired the question originally was looking at things like, as I said, ski jump. They used to see how now and slithering on Thunderbird 1. But then it's a lot easier for you to make a model that does it than somebody to make an aeroplane. So you can sort of come up with that far ahead of anybody else.
Yes, I regret that I wasn't quick enough to think about the ski jump and claim that for my own. Yes, it is of course an advantage, and we were able to make things happen with models, whereas people working on the real thing were lagging some 20 years behind. And a good example was when Concorde was being made. I was invited to the factory, and in fact they asked us, they were making a documentary, and they could of course film everything, but the one thing they couldn't do was to film Concorde taking off and flying, because the thing was all in pieces and hadn't been assembled yet. And so in fact we got the job of building Concorde, and we actually flew Concorde at the Slough Studios, I think about 5 years before it was rolled out.
Did you ever have a specific market for your programmes? Did you know who you were trying to appeal to when you started to make
I think.
As many people as possible.
Well, I think there are really. I suppose three answers. One, you have to satisfy the people who are putting up the money. And that's rather sad, because the people who put up the money are not always the best people to judge what is good entertainment. But nevertheless, that's answer number one. One has to take these people into account. And I don't mean that to be an unkind remark, because in fact they are risking their money and their reputation, so they are entitled to express their view. Secondly, the American market, in terms of revenue on any cinema or television film, represents about 60% of the entire world. So if you take all the money that the series will take throughout the world, 60% comes from the States. So clearly one has to make it acceptable for America, and I think that is pretty obvious from the number of Americans and American subjects that we chose. And then finally, going back many years when I was a cutting room assistant, I worked with an old-time movie director, Louis Milestone, who was the man who directed All Quiet on the Western Front. And I remember on one occasion we were working late at night in the cutting room, and I asked him whether he wanted something done this way or that way, and I explained that there are two ways. At that particular time, like Roy Laffbery, I was a sound editor, and I asked him which way he would like it done, and he said, and I've never forgotten this, he said that if you always remember this, it's absolutely impossible to please everybody in this world. So when you're making a picture, at least make sure you please yourself. And I think somewhere between those three answers is how we operated. But there was a strong element of, as far as I was concerned, of pleasing myself, because how can you guess what other people want to watch at any particular time? I think I was doing the thing I wanted to do, and I think, to be fair, so were all the other people at the studio, people who were creating the models and the puppets and bringing the thing to the screen. I think everybody was doing their own thing, and I believe that lack of restriction was mainly the main reason for the success the show's had.
I heard that Thunderbirds was originally going to be a half-hour show instead of an hour show. Were anyone's actually filmed as half hours? If so, were they expanded to the hour or just...
You were there, yes. I think Paddy will probably just add to this, but the short story is that Thunderbird started as a half-an-hour show, and I'm pretty sure I'm right when I say, perhaps I'll be helped out in a moment on this question, but as far as I remember, we filmed 9 episodes as half hours, and probably therefore 2 episodes had been completed and dubbed and were finished, and probably some were in the cutting rooms and some were on the floor, and probably a couple of episodes were being finalised in terms of scripting when Lou Grade, now Lord Grade, said, "Great news." It was almost like one of these 6 stories, and you know what the good news or the bad news. I mean, the good news is we've sold the series to the States, and the bad news is it's been sold as an hour, and they are making them as a half an hour. And so we literally had to continue shooting and write the very next script to go on the floor as an hour. And then we changed over to 1 hour pictures, and then we had to go back and extend the first 9 stories and shoot additional material and pull them all apart and reassemble them and make them into 1 hours. And if you don't think that's a 6 story, I can cap it by telling you that when we finished all 32 1 hours, I got a telephone call from Lou Gray to say, "Terrific, terrific, terrific." And I've now sold them somewhere else as half-hour shows. And we had to take all 32 episodes and cut them in half, producing 32 2-part half-hour shows. I don't know whether, does anybody remember that situation?
I didn't, because on the floor we wouldn't remember that, but I remember having, I think on the alligators, for instance, I didn't see the first half. It's a long time since I looked, but was that a separate story and had been merged into one? I can't remember.
No, I think that was shot as
anyway,
an hour.
it was the reason I was on special effects at that period was because of this. What had happened, we normally worked 2 crews, A and B on puppets. And I think it was A and B type puppet as well, hadn't we? Have we got double set of characters?
Yeah, 2 sets of characters.
And we always knew which one was our Virgil and which one was next door.
Their Virgil, yeah.
You see, although theoretically they were the same, they were 2 separate crews. And then in addition to that, we had 2 special effects crews doing the special effects. But what happened was we all had to work overtime, work like mad to
get these up from a half-hour show to an hour show. So we worked day and night for about 2 weeks, 2 or 3, or months probably, a period of time, shooting extra material, and people were writing the scripts, and we were marrying up together to get the hour-long episode. And that's why I ended up not only having shot the part of this in the studio part with the puppets, but doing the special effects with the alligators and falling into tank with them and all the terrible things that happened.
Well, if I could just perhaps break in here to tell you a story which I think you might appreciate since you've just seen this film. Derek Meddings was the special effects director, and I wasn't around because I was in my beddy buys, but they were shooting right the way through the night, and it was, I think, about 2 o'clock in the morning. And Derek Meddings was standing in the water tank, which are probably a couple of feet deep, and he had a 12-foot alligator on a lead, which he was holding. It was like a stick with this leather around its neck. And the cameraman, who may have been Paddy, I'm sure he'll tell me in a moment, but the cameraman was setting up on the water, because the idea was that the alligator had to lurch out of the water and go back in again. And of course it's very difficult, isn't it, to set up on a piece of water. I mean, one bit of water looks like another bit of water. So, where is the alligator going to come up? So Derek would sort of bring the alligator up, and they would set up on it, and then he would take it down, and then the camera would wind up to high speed, which took a few seconds, and then it would be action, and Derek would bring the alligator up, and it would come up out of picture. And I don't know, they went take after take after take, and always the alligator came up out of picture, or top of picture, or bottom of picture, but never in the centre picture. And finally Derek said, look, it's no good, we'll have to make the shot wider, a bigger area of water, because it's too critical the way we're doing it. So they put another lens on, and that meant, of course, that they had to light a bigger area of water, so there was a delay. And Derek stood there for about 20 minutes holding his alligator. Finally it was camera ready, and okay, turn over, and the camera rolled up to 120 frames per second, and then they shouted out speed, action, Derek, and there was no alligator. And he had been standing in that tank with his alligator swimming around loose for about 20 minutes. Now, if you, and I'm sure you've all read children's comics when you were children, and you know this lovely phrase, with one mighty leap. Now, getting into this tank, albeit that it was not that high, but with waders it was lots of and big deal and all the rest of it. But I'm told that when Derek realised that the alligator was no longer with him, it was a question of with one mighty leap, and he was out.
Just like I hear both of them. Walked on the water.
Were you there? Was it?
Yes, it was. You literally ran across the top of the water.
It's like a duct tape.
That's the question about four-feather falls. I've always wondered how those gun figures. That's all I remember about it.
Yes, well, this I'm going to ask Bert if we can see, if we can work this one out between us. We hadn't seen one of Four Feather Falls, but it was the first program that I sort of made as an independent, and the guns were revolved, I believe, by just pulling wires, and they were
strings. They're on pivots here. Just pull down, tired. Yeah.
But can you remember the gun flashes? Did we used to paint them on the negative? Was it on Four Feather Falls?
No. You had charges in the guns somehow. Then that they fired. It was automatic. You've gone on a bit from then. No, you didn't paint any gun flashes on then.
Well, then it must have been on. Oh, wait a minute. No, I know what it was. It was on the pilot of Four Feather Falls that we did that. If I can just explain my ramblings. When we made the pilot of Four Feather Falls, we had to make this gimmick work of the guns revolving. Okay, fine, as Bert says, that was done by wire. But we then also had to make the guns fire. Now, in fact, I hadn't remembered that we used charges to make the guns fire. We obviously used small charges and detonated them. But on the pilot film, where we were very, very short of money and we couldn't afford these sort of luxuries, we in fact, when we finished the picture, we marked where the guns were to fire, and we called the negative back from the laboratory, and we actually painted the gun flashes on with black ink on the tips of the guns over about 4 frames, so that we get the white flash when the thing was printed. And like a lot of things, as both Bert and Roy know only too well, like a lot of things in movie making, the pictures look so much better when they have the sound on. And it's surprising that you just get a little white blob on the end of a gun. It doesn't look very, very good, but if you put the sound of a Winchester on it, suddenly it looks like the real thing. I was asked this question on Radio Oxford the other day and got in a terrible mess over this one. We had 2 puppet units working simultaneously, and as Wanda's already explained, we therefore had 2 of each character, 2 of each character. And we also had 2 special effects units, so that gives us 4 units, and those 4 units shot for 2 weeks. So in other words, it is 8 unit weeks per hour. Have I got that right?
Sounds right. Whichever way, it was always too long. That's from the office to us.
Yes, it was about a fortnight.
And things haven't changed much.
10 shooting days.
It was about a fortnight to do the puppets
yeah.
stuff, probably with a couple of extra days in overtime.
Depending which director.
Yes, oh God, yeah. And then about the same for the special effects, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And then into the cutting room. So I suppose it must have been about a month, really. It must have been altogether.
A month, basically.
A month to complete one film.
But you'll notice a cameraman saying, depending on the director.
Oh, yeah.
The directors say, depending on the cameraman. I mean, can you do it? How can you do it in the time? I'd say to a director, they say, well, depends how fast the cameraman is. And I say to the cameraman, how fast are you? And he says, well, I mean, it depends who the director is.
No, but I mean, when you had somebody like Alan Patillo, who was, I mean, he was always trying things. He was stretching the limits of doing things with puppets, making them move in a certain way, stand in a certain way, whereas other directors would just carry straight on and just do the job and get it over with. Alan was always trying to innovate things, wasn't he? And he'd use every day that he was allotted, I think.
Yes, or when Dave Elliott had been to see the Ibcrest file, and the next puppet film that we had to shoot had to be like the Ibcrest file. I mean, everything through lampshades, through clocks, through parking meters. Oh God! It was a good film, though.
Gerry, I'd like to ask Mark about one of the models which was used to Thunderbird 6. The model was how much time and effort was made to make the Thunderbird 6 Skyship 1. At the time when it fell, how much work was used for the explosion? How much time did it take to make that fall?
Well, as Gerry said, I think you must be trying to catch me out as well, because I haven't a clue. I didn't work on it, and I'm afraid I'm just not qualified to answer that one at all. I did not work on Thunderbird 6 at all. In fact, I was about 15 years old when it was done. So I'm sorry.
I think I can only answer it broadly. It was a model that I would presume, looking back, was made in-house because we had our own model workshops. We used to hand work out, and I couldn't say how long it would have taken to make it. Obviously, these things depend on how many people are working.
Well, I've been doing reviews for the last, since I was 4 years old, and I knew enough virtually everything on Gerry Anderson, all the main stage, everything. That's why I tried to let it on.
Sorry, I missed that. Why you?
I've been Gerry Anderson fan since the age of 4 years old, and I knew enough virtually all the model side, the spec size, the camera work, and everything. How you done the models, everything. So I've been reading all your books and writing and that, and looking at your work and everything.
Well,
over and over again.
I appreciate that, and I'll equally have to watch my step. I can see that. Somebody at the back, I think.
How many heads did you have to one puppet?
Well, for this was just solely for main characters. Because we had the 2 stages, you would have for the main face 2 heads. That was for stage 1 and stage 2, and then if they were the top main characters, you would have a serious head, a smiling head, and an angry head, and a frowner. Yes. But then sometimes other things would call for special, and they would have been done as and when necessary. So you can say each of your main characters on films like Thunderbird anyway had 4 heads to each puppet.
I think, Mr. Anderson, I'm sorry to interrupt, I'm going to have to put on a serious head now. We are already half an hour over schedule. I appreciate we're a little late starting. I'm probably the most unpopular person here now, but we're going to have to bring this session to an end, otherwise the whole conference is going to run well over time. I'm sure, ladies and gentlemen, you would like me to thank on your behalf Gerry Anderson and his team, not only for coming along this afternoon and being so interesting, but also for all the many hours of splendid entertainment you've given us. Thank you all very much indeed.
Isn't it lovely that we can hear those voices from the relatively distant past now?
Absolutely. It's so nice, isn't it? It's rather like same feel as sort of the old sort of gramophone records, isn't it? When you hear the crackle and the slight,
Yeah, there's a nostalgia in the sort of archive distortion that you get, as well as hearing the old voices. So yes, again, Mark, thank you for supplying that to us. Really appreciate you allowing us to play it out. It's brilliant. If you happen to have anything similar that you would like to share with us in terms of old recordings, archive bits and pieces, to let us know, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
Oh, well, I've got some of me singing Like a Prayer by Madonna.
Have you?
Yeah,
I
is
think
that sort of thing you
might have a MCPS issue with that.
Right, okay.
So it's a great shame. But so if you've got anything else that isn't that, then do email us. Richard,
I've probably got some old voice tapes of me just trying out different accents and things, if that's of interest to
what
anyone.
a great idea. Anyway, next week we've got a very special guest.
Yep.
From Space 1999.
Oh, yes.
Series 2, mostly. Yeah. It's Maya herself. Catherine Schell.
That's brilliant news.
Yeah, so I chatted to Catherine at the end of last year. She spoke to me from France with a slightly dodgy connection, but there you go. It's a voice from the past, but recorded in the very close to present. So Catherine had a fascinating start to her acting career, all sorts of stuff to say about Space 1999 and later life too. So part 1 of that will be here next week.
Great. Oh, that'll be so nice.
I agree.
Yeah, well, exciting. And you know what's happening.
She was very nice, and she said I was a very nice and polite young man. That's how bad the line was.
Crikey, yeah, absolutely. She must have barely heard you.
That must be why that happened. Anyway,
nice.
So Catherine and many more interviews coming throughout this year. I, for one, can't wait.
No, absolutely not. Worth staying tuned for, I'd say. Now, if you're on Facebook, don't forget you can, of course, join our Podsterons Facebook group. Answer a few questions and we'll let you in. And as long as you're nice to everyone, you can join in the fun. For example, Paul Hyder has posted some Gerry Anderson shows that didn't quite make it. For example, Fireball Excel Spreadsheet, Torchy the Battery Hen, Stringray, Space 1899. Although, Jake, you and I have exchanged a few messages about what a good idea that would be as a steampunk Space 1999. Yep. Three Feather Falls and Dick Spaniard, which I like the sound of. Also, do you remember Dean Harrison sent us his periodic table?
I do.
Where all the elements were named after various Anderson-inspired names, TV series and so on. Well, people have been enjoying Dean's periodic table very much. My favourites, for example, were Orangen, of course, Jamium, and Euphonium. It's quite nice.
Euphonium. It sounds like an instrument. Oh, that's euphonium.
Yes. But, Jamie, how well do you know your periodic table? Let's find out with a very special chemical and elemental Quickfire 5. Okay, Jamie, I'm going to give you 5 elements from the Gerry Anderson periodic table. Can you guess what they are?
What?
Zn. Ordinarily zinc, but what is Zn in the Gerry Anderson periodic table?
I'm supposed to have memorised this from seeing it like twice.
Come on.
Zodiacon?
Oh, it's Zunium.
Oh, of course, yeah.
SR, as of course I'm sure you know, is usually strontium, becomes, in the Gerry Anderson periodic table...
I have no idea.
Stingranium.
Oh.
Of course it does. AC, which is normally actinium, becomes... He's been mentioned already in this podcast. Think Space 1999? Think everyone's favourite pilot?
Oh, Alan Carterium.
Exactly right. ES is usually Einsteinium, but becomes, and he's been mentioned too. Think John Coleshaw. Think Tech Talk. ES.
Oh, Edstracium.
Edstracium, quite right. And finally, PO. Normally polonium becomes...
Come on, these are rather challenging.
They are.
Podlium.
Oh, that's very close. Popkissium.
Oh, come on.
Very good. And that's this week's very special Elemental Quickfire 5.
Please never do that to me again.
That's quite clever, though, isn't it? Yeah, lots of people have been enjoying that. It's a rather nice little thing.
Well, I had been enjoying it until you sprung that Quickfire 5 with me.
I know,
and now that's ground to a complete halt.
Morty Vicker, when he read it, says, now we want a translation of the song from Tom Lehrer. Do you know the elements? There's antimony and arsenic and aluminium and selenium and all that.
Yes.
Google it.
I know the one.
We should have the Gerry Anderson version, of course, shouldn't we?
Well, if somebody wants to do that, then more fool you.
Exactly. All for now, but do pop over to our Facebook group and join in the fun. They have weekly watch-alongs and quiz nights, and they just hang out together, which at the moment is a fantastic thing to do.
Absolutely. Well, it always is, but especially when we can't do it in person.
Yeah.
Now, I need a break to recover from that Quickfire 5-ium.
Rightio.
So I think we should hand over to Chris Dalium for the Randomiserium.
Yes. Ad nauseum.
Ad nauseum, before I go completely crazy.
Crazium.
Okay, Chris, over to you.
Hello everyone. Marina and I, this is Marina, we have been celebrating, actually, because someone sent us some champagne, which went down very nicely. Who was it who sent that? It was, it was sent by a wishweller, a well-wisher. It's an anonymous well-wisher. It's non-alcoholic champagne, you know. Anyway, we're going to do the randomizer. And I have a randomizer printout. Oh, I dropped it. I dropped the randomizer. Oh, it's by this guy's feet. I just get the randomizer printout under your feet. I'm sorry. Oh, you pick it up for me. Well, you're my best friend. No, you're still my best friend, Marina, but this guy, he's my new best friend. And you say what it is we're watching today?
Time to kill.
Oh, okay. Well, then it's time for the Space Precinct. And this non-alcoholic champagne is really something. So, welcome back to it's actually the very first randomizer I'm recording in 2021. This is Time to Kill, a very popular episode of perhaps a not so popular show, Space Precinct. And anyway, we are opening with...
Personnel.
My wife says you're looking...
Well, two notable things. One, this chap,
Sir?
Tamsin, played by Nigel Gregory, was in not one but two episodes of UFO. He was in The Psycho Bombs, and he was in The Sound of Silence. The other notable thing is that his boss, Draco, earned himself a Space Precinct Pog, which is a very notable achievement of great importance to all of us.
You weren't my wife's cousin.
Written by Hans Beimler. Oh, now Hans Beimler of many American shows, including some of the 1990s Star Trek shows.
Don't worry. They're totally indistinguishable from government issues.
Tamsin is introducing this young chap. What's his relationship with this guy? Is his nephew or something? I can't remember. I waffled over it. They're running a counterfeiting operation. And the young chap, Ross, he's not too keen.
Without great risks.
Especially when he sees the money being produced from vats of acid.
Well, this is illegal.
I don't know too much about the counterfeiting business, at least not these days, but I'm not sure to what extent acid is actually genuinely involved in the process.
Is a genuine opportunity I'm offering you here.
It's certainly very lucrative. They're making quite a lot of it.
Suit yourself.
Police! You're under arrest! Nobody move! Nobody move!
That's it.
Drop!
All our heroes are here. Brogan and Haldane, Oren and Romek,
Relax, kid.
Castle and Took.
We heard everything. We need to get a statement from you, and then you're free to go, okay?
Yes, Hans Beimler, writer of many really good Star Trek episodes, in particular...
Come on.
From a story by Mark Scott Zachary, who was also another Space Precinct writer, Deep Space Nine's Far Beyond the Stars, which is just one of the greatest pieces of Star Trek ever made, in my opinion, and quite a lot of other people's. Anyway.
Like an earthquake. Brilliant, Haldane. I'm surprised you haven't made detective already.
I do know how to make the Earth move.
The warehouse has been rocked by a little bit of a tremor. Brogan hasn't noticed this chap on the... Oh, here it comes. Yes. And Oren is down straight away. Luckily, there were some empty cardboard boxes to cushion his fall. Tamsin and Draco have gotten away. Which basically leaves the warehouse with only the cops, Ross, and...
We weren't introduced.
This chap who's come to see them, he looks like a bit of a cybernetic organism, almost a cyborg, if you will. And this sequence is just so phenomenally directed. I can't remember who the director on this one is, and that's annoying me, actually, because they do such great work here. There's so many shots in quick succession. This is very unusual for Space Precinct.
That small Cosby. Tell him that.
And yet I get the feeling this was kind of what they were hoping would be the norm. This just frantic pace of the editing here. Anyway, Jane's making a break for it. Took's covering her. Jane's clear, signals to Took, who gets up in slow motion because, of course, a cyborg shoots her across the spine. Well, we're 2 officers down now.
Everybody! On my signal! Fire!
I also like these shots of one of the members of the counterfeiting gang, I think the only one who stuck around, helping himself to a bit of money, just in case. But the cop's weapons are having no effect on the cyborg. He's
Flank him!
He's heading upstairs.
Where's he going?
And Ross has taken this moment to find better cover. Bad idea.
Get out!
Cyborg shoots Brogan, and in the recoil, Brogan shoots Ross, who lands in the vat of acid. Well, Cyborg's not sticking around to help mop this one up. He's gone. And this is such a gruesome thing to do to the Ross character. The makeup is even though we don't see the face, it's covered by his hands, but I would assume...
Down. We need emergency medical assistance.
Oh. Although the editing lets the end of that scene down. Brogan has covered Ross's face with his jacket, and then at the very end we cut back to Ross. The jacket's off. But hey-ho.
Her spine was shattered.
So that was a fairly intense little scene.
Injury that would paralyze a human. Fortunately, she's a Tarn, and her spinal cord will regenerate.
Yeah, Took's gonna be okay.
Well, that is if you can hold still and give yourself a chance to heal. Well, it's times like this.
helping herself to some water.
Telekinesis really comes in handy.
And that will be a plot point later. No word on Orin if he's recovered from his stumble into some cardboard boxes, possibly a severe paper cut or two.
Relax. I'll be back on the streets before you know it. Tarns are built tough, you know.
Which is why anything bad that's going to happen always happens to this Tarn.
He's just somebody who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's an understatement.
Here's another guest actress who's been saddled with an American voice dubbed over her performance.
He's stable for now, but frankly, I'm not optimistic.
Well, I'm responsible for him being here.
Yeah, Ross is on life support. Even in what little you can see of his face there, all that makeup still looks very gruesome.
Look, Captain, please don't patronize me. I screwed up.
I'll tell you when you screwed up.
I love that.
Expected Draco to have...
I decide who's made a mistake or not.
Spring him loose. My concern is not to find fault. My concern is to determine your next move.
We look for Draco. We find him, we find the cyborg.
Well, that's if the cyborg was under Draco's control.
Also, there's a lot of talk about Draco, the head of the counterfeiting operation, but you barely actually have a chance to register who that is in the warehouse scene. You spend more time with Tamsin, to the extent you don't really acknowledge that Draco is the
Answers. Have forensics run it.
The chap with the
You managed to blast loose.
I don't know what he had, some sort of magnifying glass or something attachment to his head.
We hit the streets. Somebody's got to know something about that thing.
Yeah, that's right. Assassins don't just materialize out of thin air, huh?
Ah. Another comment that may come into play later on in the episode.
I'm disappointed in you, Zipload.
No reason, Brogan. I'm being straight with you.
And is this our first appearance of Zipload? I know he's been on the randomizer before, but is this his first appearance in series order? Possibly. This is a nice little montage as well of Brogan and Haldane checking in with their regular informants.
Please, you know I can't take...
I know Zipload was the only one to return after this, but it does make the world feel a bit more...
That's what we want to know.
More real.
I would if I knew anything, but I swear I haven't heard a damn thing.
So back at the hospital, which is not... I don't think it's the hospital where we later see Sally working. I like this little model of a sort of road sweeper, street cleaner thing out the front. Anyway, the receptionist is just going to pop out for a moment. At the moment, our cyborg friend pops in to see Took. He hasn't brought any flowers or anything. Oh no, he's not here to see Took, he's here to see Ross, but Took has seen him. And as we saw earlier, using her telekinesis, makes the beepy thing go all beepier.
Code red. Officer needs assistance.
And the cyborg has heard it. That's a fairly horrible thing to do to Took. Again. Yep, she's dead. And what's this? Oh, we've got a vial of green stuff to inject into Ross. I love the look of this cyborg, by the way. It's so... Well, from the top, the waist up, it's brilliant. And then from the bottom down, it's just got a pair of tan jeans. And I can never decide if that shot of Took dead in bed is kind of a bit too graphic, or if it's if her pose is rather comical. I'm torn between the two. Anyway, here's one of my favourite Haldane moments.
Took's dead. I keep saying it to myself over and over and over again, because part of me just won't accept it.
And one of the first times I think Rob Youngblood gets a chance to play something other than the cocky would-be ladies' man that the Haldane is on paper.
Yeah, Jane,
You get here the sense that he really does care.
If there's anything I can do to help, I mean, an ear or a shoulder. I know I'm not exactly your first choice, but... Well, the offer's there, for what it's worth.
Thanks.
Why would that thing want to kill Took? Some kind of vendetta against cops?
Maybe. If Draco's pulling the cyborg strings, could be that Draco's holding a grudge against us for busting the operation, huh?
Captain, forensics have run every test they've got on this hunk of armor.
Oh, Oren's back with us.
Inconclusive.
It's some sort of bizarre alloy that defies description. They can't tell what it's made of.
Don't they have any idea?
Well, they're talking of sending it to the Hawking laboratories on Earth, but that ain't cheap.
I'll worry about that. Get it to them.
Brogan, your friend Zipload's on Com 6.
I'm taking the captain's office.
Yay, Zipload.
Why don't you use my office, Brogan?
Zipload, what do you got? You find the cyborg?
No, but I might know where Draco's holed up.
Some very nice reaction eye movements there from Zipload.
At the Toronto Hotel.
And he also scratches his head in the same way that Oren often does.
His penthouse.
Well, looks like Draco's not home.
Anyway, it's off to find Mr. Draco. That well-defined character that you don't actually know what he looks like unless you've really seen this a couple of times.
That's going to have to wait, partner. Draco just got home.
And there he goes. Fantastic stuff. I love the shock of that.
Cyborg in that hopper.
Yep. The cyborg was rented the standard green hopper.
All units, cyborg spotted. Grid reference.
Blown up the penthouse suite just by using his handgun.
Let's nail this cop killer.
This is another fantastic model sequence here as well of Brogan and Haldane chasing the cyborg's hopper through this. I don't even know what it is. It looks just as a random assortment of scaffolding and bits. But it gives the cyborg time to sneak up behind them. Yeah, he's on the starboard bow. There's cyborg on the starboard bow. Stop. Oh, no. They're going down.
We're losing it. Eject, Haldane. Eject.
Malfunction. My ejector won't work.
Oh, dear.
I'll try and set
And as much as I like this sequence, there are some close-up shots of the cruiser. It looks a bit toy-like.
Punch out, Brogan. Not without you. End of discussion.
Oh, Brogan's gone.
Good landings, partner.
So Haldane is going to try and land this thing, which is not a good idea considering that, judging by the model shots, there's like no room on the ground at all in Demeter City. It's just skyscrapers everywhere. And I love the way we stay with Brogan on his little ejector seat chair, watching the cruiser spinning into the distance. And these are live action shots of Rob Youngblood as well, with the model city spinning around him. This looks very realistic, and then it all goes very quiet. Until... Well, that's 2-0 to the cyborg.
Tired?
It's not sleepy, it's more like...
Numb.
That's it.
This is another really good scene. This time for Ted Shackelford.
You keep asking yourself why. And you know damn well there's no reason.
I also like there's an extra coming up here who's drinking in the background. Yeah, here he goes, gets up from his table, walks past Brogan.
We'd end up together.
Just gives him a gentle pat on the shoulder.
No.
Ted Shackelford, I don't think he even acknowledges it.
What do you got, Sergeant?
Maybe a lead on Tamsin, Draco's second in command. Someone called in an anonymous tip, an address where Tamsin's hiding out.
I'll take it.
We'll take it.
Okay, so both of you take it.
What's the problem? I mean, have both your partners been killed recently? I mean, what's up with you two?
If you want to take a few days, give yourself some...
I don't understand Fredo's reaction there. He seems to be operating in a slightly different reality to everyone else there.
Haldane's killer.
Unfortunately for him, he's going to be brought into this reality fairly quickly.
I'm not.
Good. Then there's no reason for you to work alone on this.
And this is the first scene of...
You think Tamsin knows...
The first indication of...
More than that. I think
aside to Brogan, that I think the series might have benefited from if we had seen more of it.
Draco, but to kill him.
We'll get into that as it happens. Oh, a doggy roaming the streets of Demeter City. Even though dogs cannot live in Demeter City, for there is Creon fever. But he seems to be managing okay.
Brogan, it's me, Tamsin. We need to talk.
Yeah, Nigel Gregory was a shadow security man in the Psycho Bombs, and he was Cully the hippie in The Sound of Silence.
It's all right. Don't shoot. I'm surrendering.
So you made the anonymous call yourself?
What's the matter, Tamsin? Your killer turn on you?
My killer?
And his costume here, I think, ended up in the recent Eubanks auction.
For me. Right. I don't know what it does or who it is. All I know is it killed Draco. I demand protection.
You can demand squat.
Here we go.
After you, that's your problem. You hired it.
That's not true. I'm telling you, I don't know anything about it.
I'm telling you, you're gonna pay for my partner's death. And you wanna know something? I'd just as soon let the cyborg do the job.
You would.
This darker-edged Brogan, this...
You're a good cop. You play by the rules.
Not anymore.
Oh, there we go. I like that. I really like that, Brogan. I don't know if maybe that's the way Ted Shackelford would have preferred to play it.
It doesn't mean a damn thing to me. The only thing you've got to...
This slightly manic energy now. He's lost Haldane. It's almost getting to the point where he's got nothing to lose.
I don't know.
Brogan!
And now he's hitting him.
Brogan, stop it.
It's me.
And now he's got a pistol under his chin. I don't know if this would be a good character as the lead for a family show.
And his lies. I want the truth.
But...
So do I, but this isn't the way, and you know it.
For a slightly more adult series, maybe there's something you could do with this unhinged Brogan. I don't know. But it is interesting to see just how, it would only take, like, the span of a day for our Brogan to go completely off the deep end. I find that so interesting. And, rarely did we ever revisit that. I think
Sideswipe by a...
the closest we'd get to that is the Forever Beetle later on when his friend is killed. He goes a bit manic after that, but
inside a nice safe cell, okay?
We aim to please.
Not as much as he does here. This is good stuff.
Brogan, take a look at this.
The analysis of that piece of metal from the cyborg. We just got it from the Hawking Laboratories.
They say they'd never seen anything like it.
They say they don't know how an alloy of those elements, in those proportions, could ever have been made.
Well, someone did it.
Yeah, but the top metallurgists on Earth swear they couldn't even begin to duplicate this stuff. They wouldn't know where to start.
Oh, another clue?
Dr. Grant just called from the hospital. She wants to speak to you in person.
I can't explain it, Lieutenant, but his condition is improving. He's still comatose, but his heart rate stabilized and his tissue degeneration has stopped.
And you don't know the cause?
Well, we think we know the cause, but we still can't figure it out. We found an unusual substance in Ross's bloodstream. From the absorption rate, we estimate it was given to him about 39 hours ago.
That's when the cyborg broke in here and killed Took.
And this gives us some idea of the time frame that this episode is happening over.
Have you analyzed the drug?
Thoroughly, but... well,
It's a compound you've never seen before. Too complex for you to synthesize?
Well, that's right. Even given the formula, we couldn't make that drug. The technology doesn't exist yet.
I don't get it. Why would that monster give Ross a drug that would help him?
It's an interesting question because I'm not entirely sure, within the context of what we later find out, why the cyborg has that kind of drug on his person, considering that he...
Because the technology doesn't exist.
Well, again, given by what we later see, he wasn't actually intending to do what he did there.
A time traveler?
Ah.
It would explain a lot of things, don't you think?
I think you've got a hell of an imagination. Frankly.
Sell it to the BBC. They can put Michael French and Chloe Annette in it, and
the other thing I want to know about it is...
it'll be another 1990s sci-fi blockbuster for them. Oh, back to the station house. Everyone's milling around. Just another normal day. Until... oh, I love this shot. From really low, looking up at the cyborg. Didn't quite frame it close enough to avoid those tan jeans, but...
Where's Tamsin?
You gone, Fredo? No! Fredo's gone. Oren, Romac, and a random handful of extras diving for cover. Romac's down. Oh no. Random extra to the rescue. And I like that random extra dies with, well, a sound effect you're going to hear right now. I think they reused Podley's scream from that for the extra who died just before Podley died.
Proceed to precinct 88.
It's a nice fall from the balcony for Podley there.
Attack!
Oh, and Oren's dead as well.
Intruder alert. Security breach. Intruder alert. Security.
Now, what did Slow-Mo really think he was going to achieve there? Oh, no more than this random extra. Also dead. Cyborg's, not interested in the prisoners. Some nice acting from the extras there, actually, in the holding cells, which is not often. I say that about the extras in Space Precinct. A lot of the times they just look terrible.
Oh my God.
But I suppose nothing could look as bad as this. Everybody dead.
It's heading for the cells.
Except Romek.
Looking for Tamsin.
Oddly enough, played by the actor who we know would most like to have left the series, Lou Hirsch. Oh. And I also find myself thinking about in this scene, just to make it even sadder, the family members of, Orin's mum, Fredo's wife and daughter, Podley's wife and daughter, finding out that, that their loved ones were gone while the cyborg is heading for the cells. Although Romek knew that, he apparently hasn't alerted the cell guards. More dead bodies in the corridor. Here comes our good friend Sasha, the cell guard.
It's all clear around here.
With a different voice.
Yeah.
Is he going to stop the cyborg?
Hey!
He is not. Good old Sasha. He gave us the reliable, we weren't expecting him to do anything, and he did even less than that. Cyborg's taking shots at Tamsin in his cell.
Don't get me!
And Tamsin is dead. Oh, stray shots exposed some electrical cabling.
Stay back, Brogan!
Castle's gonna see what she can do with that. And get clubbed in the face. Here we go.
Oh, I'll be back for you, Brogan. You created me and you're gonna die for it.
That's such a cool line. Reminiscent of a line from another feature film, in fact. But I remember so clearly the trailer for this episode when it went out on BBC Two, and oddly enough, it turned up on YouTube a couple of months ago with that line. Oh, I remembered it so clearly.
Transported from another time, rocked by an unknown force, the hunter and the hunted battle it out. A Time to Kill. Space Precinct, Monday at 6 on BBC Two.
I'll be back for you, Brogan. You created me and you're gonna die for it.
Anyway, Cyborg has escaped, and basically everybody on the station house is dead, except with the possibility of Romek. So, now that everyone he cares about is dead, Brogan thinks maybe it's time to send his family away.
Stay here with you.
No. Now listen to me. Listen to me.
And I suppose, although there's the part of me that really doesn't like Brogan's family,
Right.
I would have liked maybe to have seen them get blown to bits.
I'm scared.
I don't think it would have, I think probably that would have been a step too far.
Going to a safe place.
Why do we have to go?
Not only for the children in the audience watching, but also...
Then how come Daddy stayed?
It would just be something too big for the Brogan character to deal with within the story.
No, I'm not taking a bat. Come on.
Matt has to leave his baseball bat. Now Brogan's saying goodbye, and he's here comes my favourite I hate Sally moment.
Call or try to contact me. Don't discuss with anyone where you're going.
I know the drill. We'll be fine.
It's gonna be all right.
No, it won't be all right. Because even if you make it through this, you've crossed a line. We can't go back to the way things were before.
Sure we can.
That is just... Although, later in the story we find out this is not the way things are going to be from now on. That line...
Let's go.
I can't even begin to express my disgust for the Sally character at that line. All of Brogan's friends and colleagues have been slaughtered. And Sally turns around to him and says, "You've crossed a line. You've gone too far." Okay, he's getting a bit unhinged, but he's not actually... We haven't seen him behaving any differently, to his family at least. So I just don't get that. In what reality does Sally Brogan watch her husband's friends, people she knows, get bumped off one by one, and then turn around to him and say, "It's your fault"? Oh, I think that's one of those moments that absolutely breaks a character. And you don't get them too often in Anderson shows, but from that moment on, I have got basically no sympathy for Sally in any situation, knowing that is her response to this kind of scenario. And I'm getting a bit angry. I can feel myself getting a bit angry there, but it's like, just the thought, you wouldn't want Sally as a wife. I wouldn't want Sally as a wife. But I do like these contrasting montages of the cyborg and Brogan preparing for their upcoming final showdown. Cyborg's taken his arm off to tinker with his gun. Meanwhile, Brogan's hiding all the family photos, setting up electrical traps under rugs. And while the story of this episode is largely inspired by... I love that this is an absolutely enormous gun that Brogan's got here. It's like the biggest gun in the universe. Is inspired by a certain series of Hollywood films. The look of the cyborg, I think, owes a lot to the Borg from Star Trek. And it's a shame that this came out when it did, because the cyborg, I think, actually looks better than most of the Borg that you had seen on Star Trek: The Next Generation on television up to this point. But then this was just before Star Trek First Contact came out, and suddenly the Borg had been completely redesigned. So it's like, if that hadn't happened, this cyborg would have looked, at least the top half would look so much more superior to the TV Borg. Unfortunately, the redesign kind of leaves him in the shade a bit. Yeah, I still can't get over those tan jeans of his. Anyway, Cyborg is cutting into the Brogan household unit. He's getting in through the garden and the back window. That's it. One shot at the electrical panel in the Brogan household shuts down all the power for the space suburb. Cyborg's gun is jammed, and because he's the main character, Brogan can survive getting punched in the face by the cyborg in the same way that Castle couldn't.
Trap won't work without power.
Although Orin did earlier, didn't he?
Trap.
He booby-trapped the gun. On the assumption that the cyborg's gun would fail, I guess? Beating him up with a gun. Now we're down on the floor again. What else can we grab? The baseball bat. It's the only time I've ever been grateful I have kids. Throwing him onto the sofa.
Now let's see who you are. Ross? That's right, Brogan. The boy you crippled. Now a man. Jane was right. You are a time traveler. From 30 years in the future. I did come out of the coma.
Yep, we've gone down the Terminator route.
Artificial body. They give you.
I'm not sure if this actor is
And when I found a scientist to it.
is the same one who plays Ross. I know Brogan recognises him instantly. I don't know if it's
Here to prevent the catastrophe that may.
if it's that actor. I want to say his name's Stephen Billington.
Didn't change history. I did, but not enough.
And another actor is credited as playing the cyborg.
Those men fired the shot that knocked me into the acid bath.
The third technician. The first man you killed.
Yes.
An odd way for Brogan to describe that character. Third technician. Did he read the script?
Me in the acid.
That's the way the script would read. But
all of you.
You've had about all the revenge you're gonna get. Now it's my turn.
I do like that idea as well, though, that he came back to change history, and he did a bit, but not enough.
Finish me.
And now he's stuck, sort of, damage control to limit the effect of what happened.
This time travel device, where is it?
Why?
Because this timeline has to be set right.
And again, one of the few Gerry Anderson episodes to involve time travel.
There's another way. Let me go back.
You can't undo the...
Even though it only really comes into play in the last 5 minutes of the episode.
The device is built into this belt. The calibration's locked into the exact time coordinates.
It's a goofy noise.
Just press that.
For a fairly goofy-looking device, actually.
When I get there, I'm gonna have to stop you from interfering. Use one of these power packs. They contain enough of a charge to disable me. Good luck.
They're all friends again. And it's off to the past. And then we get our first clue of what the earthquake was about. That was the arrival of a time traveller from the future.
I didn't do anything. Relax.
So Brogan's now outside the warehouse looking in
We need to get a statement from you, then you're free to go.
at himself and his colleagues.
All right, let's go. Come on, move it out.
Pre-arrival of the cyborg, there's the cyborg. Luckily, Cyborg of the future told him how to defeat Cyborg from the past. Slam one of his own power packs into him. Well, it's worked, he's down. There's still...
You, in the back! Drop it!
Third technician. Middle-aged man, white hair. That's it. Ray, the third technician has been defeated.
Well, it sure sounded like you.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. Must have come from outside. I'll go check it out.
You've ruined my mission.
No, the future has been changed. We're ceasing to exist. We've accomplished your mission.
I like as well that Brogan only just sees the other timeline before it disintegrates.
What was it?
I'm not sure. For a minute, I thought I saw myself.
I like the way this ending as well makes it clear that absolutely everyone is okay. Look, Took's got dialogue, and there's Ross, and...
Station with me and give a statement. It shouldn't take too long.
Oh, that's no problem.
even the empty cardboard boxes remain undisturbed.
Very grateful to you.
No, you did the hard part. You turned down Tamsin's offer.
Well, I said the words, but to be honest, I'm not quite sure what I was really going to do. I can't say I wasn't tempted.
Well, if there were a law against that, we'd all be in trouble.
Yeah.
How about a hug? Oh, it's also nice.
Well done, Brogan. Thank you, sir.
That grudging respect that was so freely given in the other timeline.
Technically speaking, that wasn't an earthquake.
Okay, Oren, it was an afterquake.
Quibbles,
None of you were even the least bit scared?
banter. It's like nothing ever happened.
So how about you, Haldane?
And I suppose, in that sense, this is a very odd episode in the sense that really only the last 4 minutes of it actually happened in terms of the show.
I don't know.
But I think it's worth it to get where we end up.
For some reason, I was thinking that we never really appreciate what we have until it's gone.
Oh.
Now that's profound.
If you ever quit the force, you should consider teaching philosophy.
Yeah, you could start writing greeting cards. I'm sure you got a big future in that.
Oh, there's one for the shop. Yeah, shop.gerryanderson.co.uk. Lieutenant Brogan, you never appreciate what you have until it's gone cards. That's it. So, that was Time to Kill, which is one of the best episodes of Space Precinct, one of the earliest triumphs of the series. It is almost a shame that basically all of it never happened, but to see particularly the character of Brogan go on that kind of journey, to see what would have happened if he was put in that situation where literally he lost everybody, it's just so satisfying. And some awesome action sequences in here, some nice model stuff, particularly that early shootout in the warehouse is really something special. I think even Ted Shackelford himself was like, wow, this is really good stuff. So it's a bit derivative of a certain film series, but for what it produced for Space Precinct, one of the earliest successes of the show, one of the most memorable characters in the Cyborg, just a really nice slice of Gerry Anderson's sci-fi action.
Whoa, time to kill him.
A bit of Space Precinct. That's a fantastic way to start the new year.
Yeah.
Love it.
I absolutely loved that episode when I was a kid because, obviously I was there when they were filming it. And as I've said to you before, there's that great shot in the station house where the cyborg kills Podley and Podley goes over the banisters and hits the desk. And obviously, and I watched them do the top part of the fall into a big stack of cardboard boxes.
I remember there was quite a crowd, wasn't there, for that?
There was, and I was part of that crowd. I guess you were as well.
I must have been, yeah.
You may have been in the scene and actually acting, or was your character dead by that point? Well,
I think I might have died already.
It was only the top half anyway. But, that was a very exciting thing to watch. And at the time, I had no idea what it was for.
Sure.
Because I didn't see the scripts in advance or anything like that. As far as I'd seen Podley killed.
Yes, indeed. That's right.
It's very cool. And I remember seeing the cyborg's armour on a sofa somewhere, before he put it on or after he'd taken it off, I guess.
Yeah,
and that was very exciting, very cool. And he had that laser on the helmet.
That's right, yes.
Which I remember being sort of shone through dry ice and stuff. Anyway, but seeing as you were actually in the show rather than just observing it as a small child, what are your memories of Time to Kill, Richard?
I was in Space Precinct, wasn't I? Sometimes I completely forget about that.
We all?
Yeah, my main memory was lying on the floor in the warehouse scene at the very beginning of the show, which seemed to take about a week. So it wasn't a particularly exciting time for me. Alan Birkinshaw, of course, directed that, who we spoke to last year on the podcast.
Yes, in
Can't
pod
remember.
104 or something.
Very good, yeah.
No,
so
I just made that up.
okay. If you want to know what it was like to make that episode, that might be worth listening to again. But yeah, it's a fan favourite. People always remember the cyborg from Time to Kill. It's one of those sort of wibbly wobbly, timey wimey episodes, and it is heavily indebted to Terminator, isn't it?
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, some nice moments, and really, what episode? Oh gosh, 12, I think, 11, 12, don't know. But
I thought it was 7.
The series was it? Well, by then it was sort of, we felt like it was finding its feet a bit.
Yeah.
So I remember it being a very happy time and a great episode to shoot.
But a good lesson to learn: never leave an open topped acid bath around.
Yes. No.
Especially when there's the potential of time travel in the future where you end up becoming the monster that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Because how many times have we left the lid to our acid baths open at home? So
absolutely. And then led to our own demise in the future assassination of those around us.
Exactly.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. There'll be more Randomiser next week. I expect it'll be less timey-wimey because there aren't that many Gerry Anderson time travel episodes unless you go into a bit of Terrorhawks with Lord Tempo.
Yeah.
I guess there's a bit in Scarlet. I think New Scarlet. I suppose there's a bit of in Classic Scarlet 2. Is it Operation Time? I'm just making up a name now, but that one.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, so there is a bit actually, but
yeah,
it's funny.
Maybe we should do a sort of a timey-wimey podcast one day.
Into the future or the past?
Yeah, well, a bit of both, perhaps. Mix it up.
Right, well, I'll look forward to that in pod 4412 coming next week, possibly, depending on when you're listening to this.
That's right.
Right, that's the end of the Randomiser, and that's the end, therefore, of this podcast. Richard, have you got any closing remarks before we leave these lovely people to their lives?
I'm just going to head back to our Facebook group just for a moment, because Jenny Davis says, me and the others at the Podders Arms group got chatting about all the different foods we've been having for New Year's Eve. So it's a couple of weeks ago, and they've come up with some Gerry Anderson themed food: wasp waffles, cham chowder, trapped in the pie, Captain Blue Cheese, the Path of Destruction special, give or stake a million, that kind of thing, current bun probe, end of the rocky road, the Duchess potato assignment, Sloppy Joe 90. I mean, they went on and on and on. So all good fun there. And finally, then in that case, over to our YouTube channel where people have been leaving messages beneath the Terrorhawks Battlehawks Century 21 Tech Talk, hosted by Ed Straker, otherwise known as John Coleshaw. CJ List says, I love the fact that Straker would be aware of these other organisations formed to fight beings from another planet long after shadows ceased. Does that mean that the Terrorhawk organisation is an advanced version of that organisation? They certainly share some similarities.
Yeah. Certainly possible, isn't it? I mean, we're not saying that 100%, but bearing in mind it was General Straker talking about the Terrorhawks organisation. It makes sense that he does know.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, interesting.
And finally, another YouTube user who's XOFERIF, Zoferif, perhaps. When the house splits open to allow Battlehawk to launch, what happens to all the stuff inside the house? Like, what if Kate Kestrel's playing the piano in the living room at that precise moment? That really used to bother me when I was little.
Yeah, it makes a terrible mess. It really does.
It must do. Yeah.
Well, we actually see it in the Christmas episode, I think, don't we? But yes, it doesn't make any sense. But a little bit like the rotating of Thunderbird 1 down the launch ramp.
Yeah,
there are these things where it doesn't have to make sense because it's a bit of fun. But
exactly, a bit like the podcast.
Watch
it doesn't have to make sense
because occasionally it's a bit of fun. But watch the Christmas episode, I think, and you'll see Neinstein at a jaunty angle with stuff falling all around him because they forgot to close the White House, which makes no sense in itself.
Yeah,
anyway,
sure.
So, speaking of things that make no sense in themselves, this has been the Gerry Anderson Podcast, episode 135. Oh, I said episode rather than pod. How unusual.
Yeah, okay. It's all right.
I won't say that again. It's weird. Pod 135, pod 135. That's the end. Next week will be pod 136 with more from Catherine Schell and more from me, Jamie Anderson, him,
Richard James,
and him over there,
Chris
Dale.
Yeah. Oh, and look, he's putting the carpet back down now. I don't know what he was doing beneath the floorboards there. But thank you for tidying up after yourself, Chris.
I'd recommend not walking over that bit of carpet if I were you. I suspect it's a pit of snakes and stuff or something.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Chris. Right, let's go before we go completely mad.
All right.
Have a great and safe and healthy and happy week, everyone, and we'll see you for Pod 136 next time. Goodbye.
See you then. Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
Richard James.
Yes?
I've got a query for you.
Oh, no.
If you had to get into one of the scrapes that Captain Scarlet gets into in the closing title art cards with the best hope of escape, what would it be? Would you be in the toxic goo, under falling crates, falling from a car, being drowned with sharks around you?
God, that's
being
really
run over
tough.
by a tank?
I think the spikes.
Oh, you want to try and get out of the spike situation?
I would. It would be a bit like sort of a Crystal Maze challenge, wouldn't it?
Bit of a gory Crystal Maze.
Well, no, because I'd get out of it, obviously. That's the point, isn't it?
Well...
Shall I tell you how I'd get out of it?
Go on.
Well, so I guess I'm wearing my Captain Scarlet uniform.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, so I've got the tunic.
Yep.
And I've got the zip.
Yes.
And the zip's got that little ring pull thing, hasn't it?
It has indeed.
Yeah? Right. Well, I would detach that.
Yeah.
And I would insert that little ring pull into the very edge of the descending ceiling. So I'd reach up through the spikes and I would just lodge it there so that as the ceiling came down, it kind of nudged against it.
What, to jam
ground
it?
to a halt. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So
Yeah?
you're jamming spike walls of spikes is your plan.
Yes.
Okay, well, obviously I've now set up that just outside your recording suite. So if you want to go give that a try, I wish you the very best of luck, and we'll work out whether you were successful or not next week for Pod 136.
Hang on. Jamie.
Good luck.
I haven't got a zip.
Bye.
Jamie.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.